This is a weekly summary of interesting news that is relevant for my lectures at the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Sciences. My name is Thomas Bocek, and today we will discuss 5 topics. The first topic, it's the following here. Swiss and German authorities recently shut down a Bitcoin mixer called cryptomixer.io. The operation was coordinated by Europol and Eurojust. Police seized 3 servers in Zurich, confiscated both the regular web domain and the Tor darknet domain, and secured about 24 million euros in Bitcoin. Bitcoin mixers pool cryptocurrency from multiple users into one large collection, and this makes tracing the original source quite difficult. And the mixers take a commission on all deposited crypto before sending it to the wallets. Here also another article from Bleeping Computer. This crypto mixer operated since 2016 and processed over 1.3 billion euros in Bitcoin. The platform was accessible on both the regular web and the darknet, and law enforcement says the service was used by cybercriminals for ransomware payments, darknet market transactions, drug trafficking, weapon trafficking, and payment card fraud. Authorities seized 12 terabytes of data from the servers, which they're now analyzing. And this data may contain logs that could identify users and operators, and the investigation is ongoing. This is part of a larger enforcement pattern against cryptocurrency mixers. In March 2023, authorities took down ChipMix, which was one of the largest darknet crypto mixers at the time. Law enforcement in Germany and the United States seized 4 servers, 7 terabytes of data, and almost $50 million in Bitcoins. In November 2025, one founder of Samourai Wallet received the maximum sentence of 5 years in prison for conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business, and the court also imposed 3 years of supervised release and a $250,000 fine. Law enforcement had already seized $6.3 million in illegal gains. The judge noted the defendant showed no remorse and still had moral blinders about his crime. The defendant's letter to the court, where criminals typically express remorse to receive leniency, backfired because it showed he had not understood the seriousness of his actions. 2 founders had openly stated in 2016 they would rather go to prison than comply with customer identification and anti-money laundering requirements. Prosecutors showed they not only knew their service was used for money laundering, but actively advertised it for the purpose and even invited Russian oligarchs to use it to avoid international sanctions. Separately, 3 operators of 2 other mixing services, Blender.io and Synbot.io, were charged for providing services used by ransomware groups and North Korean hackers to launder stolen cryptocurrency and ransom payments. And the current site from cryptomixer.ai, it looks like this, and it says this domain has been seized. More information about cryptomixer.io is here. Here you also have the Tor address, which is also not working anymore. The next article is about hardware failure. It's the following article here. SSDs can lose data when left unpowered for extended periods of time. This makes them unreliable for long-term cold storage. SSDs store data by modifying electrical charges in NAND flash cells to represent 0 or 1s or even more, depends on the cell type. And unlike hard drives that use magnetic storage, SSD rely on voltage stored in transistors. Without power, this voltage can gradually leak away, leading to data corruption or data loss. The retention time depends on the type of NAND flash used. QLC NAND, which stores 4 bits, found in cheaper consumer SSDs, can safely store data for about 1 to 2 years unpowered. TLC NAND with 3 bits retains data for up to 3 years. More expensive MLC NAND with 2 bits lasts about 5 years, and single bit SLC NAND can maintain data for 10 years without power. Most consumer SSDs use only TLC or QLC NAND. Temperature also affects retention. Industry standard often cite 1 year of retention at 30 degrees Celsius for heavily used drives. Higher temperature accelerate voltage loss, and a new or lightly used SSD stored at room temperature will retain data longer than a heavily used one stored in warm conditions. And in my lecture, I talk about hardware failure and why distributed systems are important for fault tolerance and redundancy. Eventually, hardware will break, and it's not if hardware fails, but when hardware fails. For most users who keep their computers powered regularly, this is not a concern. The drives get enough power to refresh the charges. The problem appears when SSDs are used for archival storage, stored in drawers for years, or used as backup drives that are rarely connected. This is also a reminder to check your backup strategy, which I also talk about in my lecture. The 3-to-1 backup rule recommends 3 copies of data on at least 2 different storage types, with 1 copy stored offsite. Hard drive remains more reliable for long-term cold storage than SSD, though they have their own failure modes like mechanical wear. Users should periodically power on archived SSDs and access the file to refresh the voltage in the cells. Simply connecting the drive and browsing through folders should be sufficient. The next article is also about hardware failure. It's the following here. Airbus issued an emergency alert warning that intense solar radiation may corrupt data in flight control computers on A320 family aircrafts. The issue affects roughly 6,000 of these aircrafts worldwide, and the European Union Aviation Safety Agency issued an emergency airworthiness directive requiring fixes before the next flight. The problem was discovered after an A320 suddenly dove while flying from Cancun to New York. The aircraft was cruising when it experienced an uncommanded descent. Pilots made an emergency landing in Tampa, Florida, where about 15 people were taken to a hospital. The issue involves a primary flight control computer, and a specific combination of this hardware and software was found susceptible to radiation-induced data corruption, creating risks of uncommanded elevator movement. And the underlying problem was a bit flip. Solar radiation particles can cause momentary bit flips in microprocessors or memory that change variable values, corrupt data packets, or spike sensor readings. Modern aircrafts address this through triple redundant flight control computers, independent sensor comparisons, and error-correcting memory. And most planes can be fixed for this incident in about 2 hours, according to Airbus, by reverting to previous software. So this indicates a software issue rather than a hardware issue. The next article is about supply chain attacks. It's the following here. Security researcher at HelixGuard detect a major supply chain attack affecting NPM package registry. Over 1,000 NPM packages were attacked directly in the registry within a few hours, and more than 27,000 GitHub repositories were infected after installing these attacked packages. The attacker modified legitimate packages by adding a fake bun runtime installation script. When developers installed these compromised packages, a preinstall script automatically executed, running setup bun, which then launched a heavily obfuscated 10 megabyte malware. And I already mentioned the problematic automatic preinstall, which does not happen with pnpm, and this is why I'm using this instead of npm. And the malware steals credentials from multiple cloud providers, including AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. It also collects NPM tokens, GitHub credentials, and environment variables. The attack uses Trufflehog, a legitimate secret scanning tool, to search the local machine for sensitive information. The stolen data gets sent out through GitHub Actions. The malware creates a GitHub action runner with the name SHA-1 Hulut and sets up the repository to this description. And this naming matches a previous attack from September 2025. I already reported on this, suggesting the same attacker is behind both attacks. And SHA-1 Hulut, or the Shai Hulut, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, refers to the giant sandworms of the science fiction novel in Dune. And what makes this attack particularly dangerous is the worm-like behavior. The malware modifies packaged JSON files in the infected environment, injects the malicious script, and then uses stolen NPM tokens to publish new poisoned versions. And this creates automatic propagation across the software supply chain as other developers install what appears to be a legitimate package. The last article, it's the following here. This is for my students. Finally, the virtual lecture assistant called Clara is live for my lectures at the Eastern University of Applied Sciences. Big thanks to Kevin Löffler. The system runs fully locally here in Rapperswil, so no data will leave Switzerland. The system runs on GPT OSS 120 and contains my lecture transcripts, my slides, and the exams of the last 4 years. And Clara functions as a virtual assistant that students can interact with. My students will receive access link via email, for sure until next Monday. And the system uses retrieval augmented generation, which means it can search through the specific course material and answer students. I already tried it a bit with GPT OSS 120. It provides good answers, but it's still hallucinating. Please keep in mind this is a trial and we're still experimenting, and it's still a trial and we try to improve things. So do not rely too much on the answers. If in doubt, feel free to ask me via email or Teams. And this is how it looks like. So here we see on top, this is just a regular chat, and I'm asking here, what are the topics of the wallet lecture? And without specific information, it just gives a generic answer. However, if you go here to the Clara chat, then you will see, okay, the wallet lecture, it's the following PDF here, and those here are the contents. I uploaded course material in German and in English, so that's why here is a mix match. I personally believe AI-assisted working will be part of the future in many areas, and getting experience with it and seeing what works and what doesn't is essential. So that's it for this week. See you on the 15th of December with the announcement of the challenge task winner before this channel goes into the holiday break.